Today's guest is going to tell us how she went from a professional dancer to a Latina in tech. She's also going to share some behind the tweets of our B2B companies in the executive world. Also, guys, I got to tell you so much about this awesome gaming organization that I heard about. I promise you, you're going to like it. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about it in just a little bit on STEMedia Live. Inspirational and creative people in the STEM community. I'm your host, Dr. Dania Micala, and you know why I'm excited? Because also tonight is no exception. We have a phenomenal guest, someone that we booked for a while now, and we just can't wait to get on. It's going to shed some light into some of her expertise as an incredible person in tech. But first, y'all, I have to tell you that I came across some pretty interesting news today. Organization I want to tell you about. So we're going to kick things off right now before we go any further by introducing you to our segment, our recurring segment you all may have heard before, and that is, did you hear that? AbleGamers charity. That's right. The AbleGamers charity is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving accessibility in the video game space. Yes, I heard about this recently. I was online checking out some things that were going on, and I thought this was a great organization because they are enabling more people with various abilities to be able to play video games. They assess people's challenges, is basically what they do, and they use assistive technology to bridge the gap between ability and desire. I think they're so good. They're so cool because there are hundreds of combinations of devices that they bring together, and they help people to be able to just get involved in various games that really those of us who may not have the same challenges can just take for granted. I thought it was really dope because they have accessibility experts, right? So they come and they basically assess whoever the individual is, of all ages, and they find out what exactly they need to be able to get involved in gaming, whether it be sports gaming or simulation gaming, any type of gaming, right? And after they do this assessment, they will provide a grant, right? They have many people that are donating to them that give grants for technology to allow people to really get to play in the video games. The prices really vary from $350 for some who may not need as much tech to somewhere it's upwards of $5,000. I thought it was so dope, and I came across it because I saw that Wonder Woman 88 herself, Miss Brie Larsen, was coming out on Twitter talking about it. She was really promoting them, and I just want you all to know, if you do that, if you have not heard of this organization, there is a way for you to support. The way that you can support is by going to inquiries@ablegamers.org. There it is, scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Also, let me show you all something real quick. They have what they call a fundraiser page, Tiltify, where you could go on. If you're interested in maybe even starting a fundraiser, whether it's a streaming game marathon or whatever you think, right, that could perhaps help people to have the technology they need to be able to enjoy these games. That is what I want to share with you all, and that is what concludes our segment today. Did you hear that? Now, on to our guest for this evening. Yes, Dania Micala leads social media and executive social for global B2B tech companies. Phenomenal individual who has been behind the tweets, if you will, of tech and execs for companies like MongoDB, TripActions, and Uncorp. As a proud first-generation Cuban American, Dania strives to share her unconventional journey as a retired professional dancer and dance major to how she built a new career in tech to motivate and mentor people of color interested in STEM. Dania continues to consult, speak at conferences like Hispanicize, and contribute op-eds on B2B tools like Slack for Ad Week. Now, everyone, if you're watching this, if you are in the chat, I need y'all to join me and bring some energy, bring some love as I present to some and introduce to others, none other than our guest for this evening on STEMedia Live, Miss Dania Micala.
Huh?
Hey!
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I think that is the most fabulous, warmest welcome I have ever had.
Oh, you being too kind. You being too kind. Listen, we have to make sure the stage is set, that the energy is there, because we're excited to have you. So thank you so much for joining us on STEMedia Live.
Thank you.
Yes. So, hey, so this is what we do, Donnie. I think, we've been kind of chatting for a while. I think you've seen a little bit of what we've done, but I wanted to make sure I kick things off right, like we typically do, and ask you the question we always ask, and that is, give us a random fun fact about yourself, something that a person wouldn't expect from a Latina in tech, or maybe just hearing your bio, something that we may not get into as we get into the tech, but I just want to hear if you could break the ice a little bit for us.
Yeah, so fun fact, very fun for me, not so fun for other people, depending on how you feel about this. Whenever I road trip or I'm in a car for a really long period of time, which I did a lot of in the last year, I will literally sing musicals, and not just like one song, like here and there. I will sing the entire musical from start to finish and just play every single track and go through all of them. And I guess it probably comes from more of my like performance art background, which we'll get a little bit more into. But yeah, you either love it or hate it. So you can come karaoke with me, or, find your own means of transportation.
I like you said, like, yo, you can come karaoke with me, or hey, you can go somewhere else, because if you're in this car with me, you're gonna get these musicals. Basically, the way it is. So you know them by heart, like in your mind, like you go through the whole storyline in your mind.
The entire thing.
Oh man, that's pretty cool though. Like, what's your favorite?
Oh man, it would have to be a toss-up between Les Mis and Rent. Rent is great for the car. Rent is really good for the car, because most of the time people who don't love musicals can still hang with some Rent.
No doubt. Shout out to Danielle. She says, theater geek here, so I am here for it. I love it, Danielle. Thank you so much for sharing that. Dania, that's pretty cool. I have a friend that recently told me that she does the same thing. Like, I got a ride somewhere and she had like the CD, and like, I know a few. Of course, I heard of Rent. Of course, Hamilton is like, the big deal. But like when she started pulling out some of them, I was like, whoa, like I'm out of my league here. And I bet you could probably like call out some that like, only people who are really into the musical world would know.
Totally.
What's like that sleeper, if you wanted to like say, hey, y'all need to check this one out. This is it.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's so hard for me to gauge that, because they all just seem like, normal for me, because I've seen all of them and I know all of them. I really don't know. And I will tell you, is like a sleeper for most people. Like, I remember my younger brother literally fell asleep during the battle scene of Les Mis when we went to go see it in theater.
Man.
It is a battle scene. So, I mean, that music can be a little, but.
Yeah. But it was like, it was a lullaby for him, apparently.
Totally.
Cool. Y'all show Dania some love for opening up that part of our life to us. I think it's so cool, Dania, because you also alluded to the fact that it connects a little bit with your background. So talk to me a little bit, like, obviously in your bio, we talked about, professional dancer. Like, what is the arts background? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so even though I've been working in tech for almost a decade, I had completely a performing arts childhood. I was in dance academy from 2 to 18. I went to college for dance. I was always involved in musical theater. I was a dance major. I danced professionally in New York City after college. I choreographed, I taught classes. That was my entire background. But I think on the side for me, as a hobby, which I didn't even know could become a career, I was also the little girl who was obsessed with computers. I would be 9 years old on Windows trying to change the paperclip the little paper clip follow you around.
The help paper clip. Can I help you or something? Yeah.
Exactly. I'd be changing the colors, adding like glitter, like so that as he moved, there'd be like this glitter behind him. I would change all the fonts of the computer. And then I started getting really into this platform that was called Neopets. Kind of like an OG social media where you could create your own pet, vibe with the community, hang out. But the coolest thing about Neopets is that there was actually tutorials to build your pet a website or a shop. And so that's when I really fell in love with what I could build. But again, had never really thought of it as a career track. I was very tracked in a different direction. I also didn't really know anyone who was working in tech, and social media wasn't quite a thing yet. So it evolved over time.
So just to get back, I guess you went to New York to dance. So you went to college for dance.
Yep.
You went to New York for dance, but you also had this affinity. What tell us just a little bit more about that phase of your life though, before we get into tech. Like, what were you doing in New York? What was your gig? And like, you know, was it sort of a traditional sort of 9-to-5 type of scenario? What was that like?
No, so I don't think any dancer has a 9-to-5. That's just not the way that the business works. I mean, I was working a ton of other jobs. So to give some context, I graduate. I'm a dance major. I've been performing.
What school, by the way? I'm sorry. What school did you go to?
Franklin and Marshall College.
Okay.
It's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Fun fact: Amish country. Yeah. So New York City is a little bit different.
Got you.
But I go to New York and I do the thing and I'm auditioning. I find a company. I get a solo, then I'm choreographing. But while I'm doing all of that, of course, I'm working a million other jobs. I was teaching senior citizens Zumba and dance classes at the Brooklyn Senior Center. I was, renting studio space to continue to teach. I mostly did modern contemporary. And then the troupe that I ended up working with, where I was a soloist and choreographing, it was a modern contemporary Afro-Caribbean dance troupe. So that was really like what I loved. And it was amazing. Truly loved it. But I think
sounds amazing.
Around 23, 24, I was also working crazy hours at a boutique just to, bring in income. And a girl that I was working with, she literally said, let's just drive to California. So I said, give me 24 hours. And after
New York, yes.
After some conversation, we ended up, driving 3,000 miles away. And that's what kind of pushed me to make a change, to make a break. At this point, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 23. Yeah. And you get to a place where it's like, okay, I can go back to school and maybe I'll be a dance professor. Maybe I try to open my own studio. But I was really enjoying other elements of, for example, even just working on commission at a boutique and what that was doing for my finances, while also being able to run the boutique's Instagram or help them out with a website. And so I started developing all these little things.
All these little techie skills. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I think moving 3,000 miles away, and this was about a decade ago, making that move really propelled that life shift where you have to start over. You're passing resumes around like crazy. And then it's like, okay, what's next?
Right.
So super long-winded. I end up in California, and it really back then, this was more normal than I think it is now. But I saw an ad on Craigslist to go meet with someone at a cafe for a job. Right.
And this is Silicon Valley, by the way.
No,
this is not Silicon Valley.
This is Los Angeles.
Oh, LA. Okay.
Yeah. So Los Angeles, and for anyone who's wondering where that came from, I'm actually based in San Francisco now. But
right. I know you had a Silicon Valley connection, but so then you were in LA though. You were in the entertainment capital.
I'm in LA, and
it's
a great place for dance as well. Like my evenings, I was, teaching ballroom, salsa, Latin dance, anything I could, still working at boutiques. But I finally got my into corporate, where this was a time where working in tech or starting on a marketing team, getting in was very difficult to do without a marketing degree, a business degree, a tech degree. So I was able to land a job as a headhunter. And I started recruiting marketing.
Technical headhunting, by the way, like you were helping people get into tech jobs.
Exactly. because
Okay.
I kind of got designated this role. I was the only person in the firm who could speak the language or understood what front end was versus back end and
Back
what
end.
the jobs really were. Like, what does a JavaScript developer do versus someone who's in marketing for technology, and being able to distinguish that 10 years ago was a lot harder than it is now.
But you were self-taught though. You were self-taught because you went to school for dance, but you learned all this lingo and terminology just from like fiddling, like from Clippy, basically.
Yeah. Honestly, my start was Neopets tutorials. Not even kidding. It was tutorials on how to build a website, how to build a shop. And they had like community groups where I think all the techies hung out and they would exchange tips. It was almost like a Stack Overflow, if you can imagine that. But it was on Neopets.
Right.
That's where I learned so much of it that then I was able to really just Google.
Yeah.
Just research and figure out how to do different things and make it happen. But yeah, so it kind of fell on me to work with tech professionals because I was the only one who could kind of relate.
Right.
But again, double-edged sword, because I'm looking at these resumes and I'm working really hard to get everyone their dream jobs.
Right.
And they're now making 5 times as much as I'm making. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I do everything on this resume. How do I make this happen? And the reality for me at the time was completely quitting, doubling down on myself, and really just like trying to get the business for myself as my own LLC, as my own consultant, until I could build enough of a portfolio to either do it for larger clients or within house.
Do you feel like having the knowledge but not having the formal degree at the time was ever held over your head, or do you feel like it was more of an internal, like what type of challenge here? Because obviously you had the know-how, but sometimes they're looking for the formal criteria. Did you ever run up against that?
All the time. And I think some of the issues too stem from recruitment systems, that if you have certain keywords when searching through resumes, like especially when I used to be a headhunter, you would put things in that, like, if the client wanted a bachelor degree, you check the box, right? Candidate must have a bachelor degree. So now I'm only sifting and searching through candidates with the degree required. And obviously things have very much changed now for the better.
Yes.
But then you might not even be seen because you wouldn't even be part of the search. So it was definitely challenging. And then even embarking on my own journey to land clients or consult for other people would be, well, why you didn't go to school for this, you don't have the degree. It pushed me to the point that eventually I did a certification, like one of those little certifications, like out of college, that, it was at your own pace, at your own time. And
on demand kind of deal.
What I will tell you is, like, unfortunately then, having that on paper helped me land more clients. But what I learned was nothing compared to what I was really doing, and by doing it in real life. Completely different, where I even felt like the course was super behind. It was like behind its time. It wasn't relevant. Social and tech changes constantly. So for me, like, if anyone was to ask me, is it worth it? I would hope not at this point in time. Like, your portfolio should speak for you. Truly. Yeah. It
makes me think about, how people are saying, I guess Google just came out with a certification, and a lot of tech companies are now saying, hey, at the end of the day, because at the time, like you said, it was just kind of like a check mark, whether or not they knew it or not, they just wanted to see that particular degree. But now, because of things have changed, it's like, we just want somebody that can do the job. And so we can train you to do the particular jobs that we have, whether or not you have the piece of paper that comes from a traditional university. I think that is interesting. I think that is interesting.
Yeah, I would say, like, looking at the certifications, and, this is just my very humble opinion, but looking at going the certification route versus 4 more years of school, 6 more years of school, like, depending on what you want. Like, for me, the more education, the better. Truly. Like, I'm pro education, like pro what you want to learn. But I think there are really talented people out there who, like, for example, like, at the time I was working a full-time job. Going back to school full-time was not an option. It wasn't something I could even do financially. So, you know, my best choice was a certification where on paper, like, okay, I did it, check.
Yeah.
But everything I learned wasn't even from that.
Right, right. So, you know, I do want to get into your business, like, because obviously you said that you started your own LLC, you started doing this thing independently, but during your phase as a headhunter, right? Because we got a lot of people that come across this, that be watching this, that is like, they're trying to get jobs, they're trying to take their career to the next level, they're trying to get their great dream position, and they have to maybe go through someone like yourself in that role. What can you say to those individuals that now in this day and age is like you say about the certifications, right? But what else did you kind of find was helpful for people who were successful in landing that desired position when you were a headhunter?
Yeah, what I can do is like speak from my own experience.
Okay.
And by going into interviews where you don't feel that you meet all of those qualifications or that you check all of those boxes, like the word track for me and something that I still stand by to this day, even if I was thinking about hiring, even if I was, you know, building a team, it's that without diverse backgrounds, it's very hard to build creative solutions. And so when you change your mindset to, I might not have this degree and I might not have these things, but I will be able to be creative differently than someone else who had one particular track, went to one particular school,
Right.
Learned a certain kind of way. My solutions, my thought process, the ideas that I will bring to the table will be creative because they will be different.
Right.
And that's a good thing because you're able to collaborate and build from a different stance. So that's the way that I look at it. And if a company, honestly, like for me, if it was my qualifications that were the reason why I didn't get the job, then I don't want to work for a company like that.
So what I'm hearing is, and this is definitely true about you by just hearing your story, we should own our creative perspectives just as much as our technical ones. Like you came from dance, you had like this eclectic background, theater, obviously you still love musicals and stuff. And that adds to the diversity that you bring to an organization. And so I think STEMedia actually believes in promoting that as well, you know, like the technical intelligence as well as the creative genius. And so putting that forward, not being ashamed of it, regardless of whether or not you meet those technical that technical criteria or the traditional technical criteria. I think it's really a really good piece of advice. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah, when it comes to the technical stuff too, like you do have to do the work. But there are lots of ways to do the work and to learn it and to find your path like through it and prove your success. So like that is important. But again, like echoing what we just said, it's like the idea of like coming from a different perspective and being creative is what really adds value to the team.
Got you. Everyone, this is Dania Micala. She is coming to us live on STEMedia Live this evening. Really interesting story. Really interesting story how you got to California just on a random road trip and you just end up living there. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anything like that. 24-hour road trip that ended up being a permanent move.
Yeah.
So when you were working, I mean, as a headhunter, a technical recruiter, what have you, and then you decided to go the entrepreneurship route, what was your first, like, what was the business that you incorporated? Like, what was the service you were offering? Was it still recruiting for these companies, or were you offering other things? Like, how did that business sort of emerge?
Point, I had seen enough resumes and knew that I had the skill sets of these jobs that were making way more money than I was.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it's time to change it up. So I immediately started like branding myself for social media, digital marketing, which include paid ads at the time. And of course, just consulting for any companies that needed consultation. And at the time, I was building websites or doing anything else that might have been needed, which included logos, graphic design. But that is like here's the thing, like when you first start a business, and this is what I learned, and it took me a minute to learn it. When you spread yourself too thin, it is really hard to get really good at being known for one thing. Mm-hmm. Even if you're okay in all of them, like good to eventually narrow it down. But the other reality is that when you're starting a business, you want to take any money that's coming your way. Like,
Yeah.
it's
You
like
need it
30,
sometimes. Yeah.
for a logo. It's like, yes, because it's another thing for my portfolio. And again, like the idea of, it's not that I'm not worth more. It's not that my work isn't worth more. It's that this is almost my payment to get the degree that I didn't have. This is almost me paying my dues to get the portfolio that I don't have access to.
Gotcha.
And so that was kind of how I built, and it was everything and anything. But the biggest part for me was that I was branding all of it on my Instagram. So 4 or 5 years ago, I was sharing everything that I was doing on Instagram, and that's how I was able to build my own name across social, where 90% of my business was coming from social media.
From social media, Instagram or like LinkedIn and stuff too?
Truly Instagram at the time.
Wow.
Yep. At the time, it was honestly probably 95% Instagram.
Yeah.
Of having everything from small businesses to anything I could do, branding myself within this tech space. I particularly enjoyed working with tech companies. I just didn't know how to harness it at the time. Super long story short, I was invited as an influencer. And I use that term loosely because sometimes I don't know how I feel about it, but as someone within the tech space,
yeah,
I was invited to a really big tech conference. And at that conference was where I was able to meet the CTO, start running his Twitter, and then from there it took off.
Yeah.
And I was in, and that's how like the network building began, honestly. So Instagram did a lot for me.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. No, I agree. I resonate with a lot that you said that I just want to go back to really quick. One, it is tough to like build a name for yourself when you're trying to do everything, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like STEMedia, for instance, is a media company, right? We do media production and STEM specifically in science, technology, engineering, math. But like we'll get those calls like, can you do this wedding for me? Can you do this thing in my church? Hey, can you do this video? I'm trying to do a music video. I'm trying to come out with a mixtape. Can you do it? And though I really want to be known specifically for STEM, and that's to your second point. Like there were a few times early on where I was like, you know what? Let me build this portfolio real quick. Let me show what is possible. Let me use it as an opportunity. And I'm just wondering, before we get to the again, like your client, like how does a person even know when to charge what they're worth? And I use that because I know that people feel that differently versus taking advantage of opportunity to either like learn through the school of hard knocks, like you said, for the portfolio you don't have. Like when does that transition change based on your own experience? Going from like, hey, I'm worth this much to like, or going from just like, hey, I need this opportunity to like, hey, this is how much I'm worth.
Yeah, here is the truth.
Okay.
It truly changes forever. I mean, permanently, when you don't need the business anymore. This is what I mean by that. So building a business is really, really hard. And there are different cycles. There are even months at a time that your business might make more money than other months, right? Of course, we would love to make the same money all of the time, but it's going to ebb and flow. This is the way of the world. Even think about retail stores, compare it to holiday season. How much someone is selling versus in holiday season versus in January or February. Not so much when everyone just spent all of their money, right? Yeah. And even within like B2B tech, we have different budgets for Q1 versus Q4. So as a business owner or entrepreneur, I don't know that there's ever, you do have to set your boundaries, and certain things as you continue won't really be like within your realm anymore. It just won't be in your wheelhouse. Like, sorry, we don't do that anymore, but I can recommend you to someone else that might be starting off and do something like at a lower rate, right? For the most part, like there are going to be times where you surprise yourself and you're like, I never thought that I would take it at this amount again. And you do.
Yeah.
You need it, right? And sometimes it's even for the name, it's for the momentum, it's for the slow season. So I think the only times that like people can really be like, nope, never again will I ever do it at that cost. It's like when you really don't need it, because your business is like really set to flow month over month, like consistently with like more than you need. like very much in green, but it is very, very hard to get there. And if you have, I congratulate you. You know, I've had periods in my life where I felt that way. But ultimately, like continuing to work or work something out, setting expectations as you mature in your business of, well, for this, I can do this, and finding a way to come up with a creative solution versus turning it down completely. I think like that's the art of business negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something very profound. I hope y'all are writing this down. You said when you don't need it anymore, because that's true. Like if you actually need it, so, you know, sometimes people, you know, I don't know how to say it, but like, you know, get over like arrogant at what they have when, like, truth be told, they're kind of in a position where they kind of need it, you know. And I'm not saying that people should be like really like taking disrespectful rates or anything,
Sure.
but you know, like I've learned that, you know, you come down sometimes, you negotiate, like you said, not turning it away completely, trying to find ways to like work with the individual. But yeah, when you don't need it anymore, and like I guess the leverage is all on your side,
you walk away. You're like,
yeah. You're like, all right, you know.
Which honestly is really no business owner ever. Okay, because if you're a business owner and an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you know this too, you always want to do better. You always want to continue. And yes, there will be things that no longer truly, like no longer something that you do anymore, but there are other ways to work it out. It's really hard. I think the hardest thing once businesses get successful is actually walking away from the jobs that will cause you like more time than it's worth your time. And then that's, I think the flipping of that switch is also part of that. So yeah, the short answer for me is like when you don't need it anymore, but I think every business owner for a very long time probably needs it.
Yeah.
In some way.
No, that's facts though. I love it. I love it. That was very practical. And I think that's a very clear way of looking at it, Dania. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering, so your first, I guess, executive client that you took over social media for was the CTO that you mentioned earlier. And so I'm wondering, like, what does a pitch sound like when it comes to like taking over an executive's social media? Like, is it just like, hey, look at mine, I'm killing the game, I'm an influencer, you know, this could be you, you know, is it like that? Or was it sort of like, I don't know, more natural, just kind of fell in your lap? Talk about that. How do you convince somebody to turn over their social handles to you?
I love that. That's a great pitch. Maybe I should try that. This could be you.
This could be you, but you tripping. You hire me yet, so no.
Yeah, for me, and I'm completely happy to share this because I wish I would have had people share these things with me earlier in life, because they're the little things that just help you a bit. I don't remember how I found these words or what happened, but I remember meeting him quite casually in a group of people. It was during towards the end of the day of day like 2 of the conference. So I was able to introduce myself and clearly just say, you know, I help tech companies with social media. And obviously this was a big company, so they have an entire internal team, but I'll tell you what happened in a second. So I'm just having a casual conversation and I kind of like let it go in that moment. And all I said was, would you be offended if I gave you my card? And he said, no, not at all. So I handed him my card. He was then able to probably look through my stuff, check it out. I made sure to follow up. We exchanged, that's a win right there. Right. So I'm like, wonderful. And within the first follow-up, we had a deal that we were going to try it out, you know, for a 3-month period. That 3-month period extended to almost a year. And within that year, when someone within their marketing team quit for the entire company, was there to backfill. So I was able to do the social for the entire company, as well as the CTO, as well as some of the other executives who are like, oh, you have social, I want social. And it kind of just spiraled from there.
Yeah. Spiraled in a good way, right? Yep. Spiraled in a good way. Yeah. That's interesting though. Yeah. For real. You know, I've never, I guess maybe I've heard that before, but like, you know, would you be offended if I give you my card? That's like, you know, it's like a like aggressive, intrusive way of like introducing them to what you have to offer. And I feel like a lot of trust goes into that too, right? You tried it out for the first 3 months. Was it like, all right, I'm just gonna give you temporary passwords for like the beginning? Like, how did that trust begin to emerge and build in that relationship?
Yeah, so I think with social too, it's like when you take a step back and you really look at how you organize social, it's a big component of it is pitching a strategy. So once you have the client, that's not just it. You don't just start logging in. You're not just all of a sudden them. It's a combination of building out a strategy based on what you've seen. But even more than that, it's genuinely spending time in those meetings, getting to know them. What do they like to do outside of their work? Who are they as a person? Because when you're tweeting for someone or even as an organization, there's a particular voice which is not yours.
Right.
So as much as I would love to put black hearts on everything and glitter and, you know, a million exclamation points, if that's not the voice of the other person, you really have to shift, and you cannot know that until you really have sit downs and you get to know them and you hear how they speak, you watch their keynotes, you watch their speeches. There's a lot involved. But yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, and that it's probably some, you know, a few missteps, I guess, here and there, whatever you want to call them. Like, not like for anything bad, but it's like they probably see a tweet or two. It's like, that doesn't sound like me at all. Did that ever happen?
You know, it hasn't happened to me yet. Knock on wood, but.
Yes, we're not gonna claim that at all. Absolutely.
The reality is like there's approval process, right?
Okay.
So like you have the keys, but it takes years to get to the point where it's like you fly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay. That's part of building the relationship.
Totally.
And you know, helping someone curate a voice and a presence in spaces that they normally aren't, because they're really busy, powerful people doing important things.
Yes. And you're doing important things because you literally are keeping the consistency of their brand alive across platforms and social. Shout out to the Black Math Academy, like a spokesperson. They need to know you well before they can speak for you. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
About that. Yep. You know, I thought about that too, Dania, like in terms of STEMedia, like, you know, there have been times where other people like, you know, control the account and you know, ran it for periods of time, but never has it been like continuous. And I think that's probably one of the reasons, because I've always been like, I don't know, what if they get into a argument in the comments, because like, you know, and I'm not really like that, and it just takes the brand off the rails.
Yeah. It's hard to completely give up control.
Yeah.
Why, you know, especially within like B2B tech organizations, there's approval process, there's crisis monitoring, and then a strategy for crisis management, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, sometimes you can send a tweet, you go to bed, and the next thing you know, it went viral, and possibly in a bad way. And then there's quite a deal to clean up. So it's, you know, it comes with that territory, and no matter how many processes you have, you can't always avoid that, but you can be prepared for it, which helps.
Got you. Well, I think that is a good segue into our segment that I gave you a heads up about, and that is called School Me. You're gonna tell us, because now you're not just doing this for one brand or one executive. You've developed sort of a whole philosophy, and you're a professional at this. And so we're gonna get into that right now in our segment called School Me. School Me. Hey,
I love it. Welcome, everyone. Today's lesson.
I know, right? It got like the school lunchroom vibe, you know what I mean? It's freestyle.
Yeah, way better than Magic School Bus.
I know. There we go. The 2021 version.
Love it.
So Dania, go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you have to share here about the 3 focus areas within social media departments. Break it down for us, please.
Yes. So what I wanted to school in today is how I break apart social media when running or building teams for different organizations, because I think we get really caught up in, and I joke too, right? Like I'm behind the tweets, but there's so much more to running social for brands, even other influencers, celebrities, whatever industry you might be in. It's more than either just filters and Instagram stories or tweets. There's a ton of platforms that are constantly changing, but how can we break them down, and how can we kind of keep some consistency in every department that we build? And for me, the top three are social, influence, and community. So if I'm putting together a department for social media to lead social, there's the idea of social as its own entity, which I think is really important, because in any organization, social has this really interesting and fluid role where we connect with everything from demand gen to the executives, to product marketing, to the developers, like wherever you might be, you're working with all of these different people, even recruiting, HR, to get different messages out to help amplify things that are going on within the organization. But it's really important to remember to have your social first initiatives. So what belongs to social, what is only created by social, whether it's, something like even this, like if you're doing Takeover Tuesdays, or I've seen your Women in STEM Wednesdays, creating those kinds of initiatives allow social to be its own entity. So you have social, you have their corporate channels, and that's one bucket. We'll put it in a bucket.
Got it.
Then we have influence, which is how do we create influence? And for me, that's typically executive thought leadership as influencers from within the organization. And then it's also working with influencers, which could sometimes even mean brands. When you work in B2B, you have a lot of partnerships with other organizations, other companies. And so there might be ways to partner with other orgs or clients or customers that become your influencers. But then at times there's people within the industry who are amazing, great content creators, and you want to partner with them as well.
Let me ask, can I ask a question on that influence piece? Like, does that include, like, you may have like your highlights, you're partnering with people, but like giving pieces of like educational material on your social media, like, hey, here's 3 tips to be able to do this. Does that kind of fall in that, or is that still social?
Yeah, I would say, well, if you're putting the tips on social,
yeah, like you're posting it and you're doing it, for instance, on your carousel on Instagram or something like that.
To me, that's still social.
Okay, got you.
Social first initiative, that if you were like curating and creating tips, they belong to social, they're on social. What would be different, the way that becomes influencer, and we've done it in the past, is like when I worked for a travel tech company, it was getting an influencer to do his like top 5 tips as an entrepreneur traveling. Right. So like now he's an influencer influencing for the company on tips, versus you as the brand being like, here are our top 5 tips.
Got you. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I love this.
Danny says there's gonna be a quiz. Danny, we might just pop a quiz on you, Danny. I hope you're paying attention.
Yeah. And then for me, the third area of focus is community, which is truly like the most important area. And I break it down again in 2 sections. Every organization has a community that's within. So this is speaking on like B2B tech. You have your community of employees. So it's how do you build that? How do you cultivate that environment where people know what to share, feel comfortable sharing, and build that internal brand community? But then there's also the community of people who might be using your product or your software, or love the brand, who aren't from within, but you're building a community on the outside. And how do you continue to curate that and build that, whether it's LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, different avenues of creating that. So those are like the top 3 things for me that I focus on when like beginning a department, and then it just all kind of, you funnel in the details all there.
I love it. You're giving us real game. Y'all, Dania is giving us real game right here on STEMedia Live. I think this is so dope. It's funny because like it makes a lot of sense. And I think I said this to you, like this makes so much sense. It clarifies things, but at the same time, it's almost like, well, what were we doing, or what were you doing beforehand?
Yeah, it's things that most people, like even for STEMedia, you're probably doing naturally.
Right.
Just haven't thought about it in buckets, and then realizing, okay, if I make these 3 different areas of focus and then build out as those are the goals. It's a goal to have social first initiatives and speak as a brand. It's a goal to have influencers, and it's a goal to have community and build community. And it's like, okay, how do we do those 3 things?
Yes. Dania, I can't thank you enough for just breaking this down for us. I know people are benefiting from this, so thank you so much for sharing this. And we'll bypass on the quiz for now, but you may get this on the final exam, people. So make sure you keep your notes. And that has been our segment of School Me. School Me. School Me. All right.
I was like jamming.
Jamming. All right. Get that nod, that head nod. I want to ask you something about, you said it earlier, right? Like you may go to bed one night, tweet something, and then you wake up and then it goes viral, right? And it may not be in a good way. Like crisis management, right? Like you see this a lot in like the political arena. You see this a lot when people have to do, I don't know, when people just like get caught up in, maybe a scandal or quote unquote, whatever, like this mess, right? How do you, as a person who is like fully entrenched and fully behind someone's tweets, behind companies or corporates, PR, when it comes to social, how do you kind of navigate through those moments when it's like, hey, this could be bad if it's not handled appropriately?
If I had a one-size-fits-all answer, it'd be I would have so much money if I could sell that to companies.
Yeah.
So twofold. It's one, over time, or working with like a team that's experienced and has seen different things happen, you will know how to respond differently. There really isn't like a one size fits all answer. Like every situation is so different and has to be handled with so much care.
Right.
So if anything, like consistently across the board, I can say that like, not only do you always have to have your, like, even in social, you have to have your PR hat on of, okay, like this sentence, how bad could it go?
Wow.
It's the little
every sentence, like you analyzing the sentence, like how could this be misinterpreted?
Everything. What could the pushback be? Is it worth it? Is it not? What are we going to see? What could possibly happen? Okay, it feels all right. Go for it. And then sometimes, no matter what, you know, all of a sudden it blows up. My number one thing, and it's only what I can recommend, but again, like we're working with teams, we're working with other professionals who have other opinions. My stance personally is I'm a firm believer of never deleting something that goes wrong unless it's absolutely horribly offensive, should not be online, period. But if for some reason, let's just say, I'm trying to think of something, like if someone says they hate oranges,
right?
And this goes like terribly wrong, and all of it.
The orange industry just goes up in arms. Yeah.
This is just me making up something completely random.
It's all good.
The number one thing for me is like, is it a hate statement? Is it racist? Is it abusive? Were we cursing? Like what happened here? Or is it just an opinion that didn't take well? Now, if it's an opinion that didn't take well, I truly believe that we have an opportunity on social more than most places to listen to feedback. That's the beautiful thing. So if now all of a sudden 40 million people have decided to retweet, wow, this is terrible because everyone loves oranges and how dare could you say something like this? Maybe you have a moment where you reevaluate, and there's nothing wrong with coming back and saying, you know what, I heard you, I listened to you, I'm reevaluating my statement, and I completely see where you're coming from. This is, you know, what it is. Because then like sometimes deleting it, or what's even worse is deleting the negative comments. To clean up, because you know that they're going to get screenshot.
They're going to find it. People are going to pull it back up. Why did they delete it?
Everyone's going to see the tweet that you hated oranges all over Instagram because people took a screenshot and they put it everywhere. So It's a terrible example because unfortunately I just can't give anything real. It would
No,
be
I got you. I got exactly where I get your drift though. Yeah.
Sometimes it's really good to use social as that feedback to listen and then apologize and create space for like whoever you might have offended, but like in a transparent way. Then there are times, and not in my experience, luckily, but we see a lot of it online where people say something absolutely horrid, right? It's abusive, it's racist, it's uncalled for.
Right.
Like to me, you need to remove it from the platform and you need to work on your statement. You do have to address it. You can't sweep it under the rug. You cannot pretend it doesn't exist.
Right.
And you have to take full ownership and accountability for what you did. And you have an opportunity to move forward and see if you'll be greeted the same way. But if you're not, you also have to understand that you really messed up.
Man, I feel like I could go so many different directions. Twitter for the last 4+ years has been a hotbed, to say the least.
Oh yeah,
for all types of conversations. But I won't go down that rabbit hole. Shout out to the Black Math Academy. He's talking about the movie Zootopia. He was just kind of bringing up another example in the movie. I thought it was pretty cute. But what about, I want to ask you, if y'all have any questions, really quick to slide in, feel free. But I got to ask you this too. Well, I have 2 questions down there. One really quick is trolls. How do you handle trolls? What is your rule of thumb for people who are just like shooting at you? They're not worried about deleting it. I mean, this is what they do. Like they go and see it. They try to get a reaction out of whether it's a person or a company or whatever. Like, do you just have a don't feed the trolls policy?
Yeah, my sentence is I don't negotiate with terrorists. And I just don't, and I won't. It's not worth your time or energy to engage with someone who literally just wants the attention. But what I will say is, even without engaging, it can be really harmful and impactful to those who are monitoring, those who are reading, and to others who might be reading. So again, if the troll says something that is absolutely horrid, unacceptable, it's my job to report it. Hide the comment. Those comments, hide, blocked, deleted, absolutely, because it's unnecessary. But if someone has a difference of opinion, like I've dealt with accounts that literally just make accounts to be like, your software sucks, right? It's like, how far, it's like, where do you draw the line? But
right.
To have a different playbook. And for me, you are allowed to not like my product. You are allowed to not like something, but it's how you say it and how you do it. But either way, like anyone out there who like does this for a living, like seriously, take care of yourself. Therapy is my best friend because it is a lot ingesting all of it in the DMs. Like sometimes if it's even not mine personally, but in organizations, after a while of people saying horrible things to you, it does get to you. So like be mindful, take care of yourself, drink your water, go to therapy.
I love it. There you are. You listen. If you're out there, if you're listening to this, Dania said, take care of yourself. You're not going to get a response out of her. She's not going to negotiate with terrorists. Like, as far as for your own good, check out therapy, get some rest, get some sleep. I think that is great. This has been a great conversation, and I just really appreciate you coming on. If I can just ask you one more question too before we get how to stay in touch with you and everything. I see STEMedia becoming so much more, and I believe it's so much more than just a personal brand, right? And while a lot of the vibe and the face of STEMedia could be sort of personable, I've always tried to figure out, as I think ahead, what is the sort of the way to go when you want a company, a corporation, to still sort of have that personal touch that maybe a personal brand has, that still feels accessible, relatable to the people following it, but at the same time no longer feel like it's a one person type of show. And I'm gonna be honest, this is a kind of a selfish question. So what advice would you have to me, STEMedia and other brands like that watching that want to eventually make that transition just in this world?
Yeah, so I think I think the best way to start, and this is, I'm taking a deep breath before I say this, because every marketer who is listening right now is going to be like, we've heard this 100 times, boring. And like the first thing that comes to mind is you have to humanize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hold on, before everyone gets all crazy, like, duh, we know we're supposed to humanize brands and humanize social media. We get it, Dania.
You can hear them in your head. You can just hear them in your head.
I can hear it. This is like the PR me being like, I know what's coming even before I say it.
I'm all ears though. I'm not there. I'm not there.
So it's like, what I'll say is like with humanizing something, especially like STEMedia, it's like you have so many amazing people that you've worked with, that you've talked to, and it's how you take that to the next step of letting them continue to speak for the brand for you. Because you can only do so much of the brand like as yourself, but then having other people as your advocates, even establishing like an advocacy program of, we would love to send you a t-shirt, we'd love to send you a mug, we'd love to offer you something 15% off of this course of a company that we've partnered with, whatever that might be. Would you mind, sharing with us? We'd like to, gift this to you in kind. But should you share it on social media, we'd love to consider you a STEMedia ambassador or part of our advocacy program to continue, spreading our message and sharing that message of, getting people interested in STEM, whatever it might be. Yeah. It's building a team, having them help you, speak for you. Mm-hmm. And then over time, again, those social first initiatives, it's a great start. Like even doing stuff like this, it's like you're meeting with other people, yeah. This is humanizing, right? So it's like
sure. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. And then also as you grow and as you expand your team, like giving the lead to different people and like making it known, like what do different people do? Even within B2B tech organizations, we do spotlights on different employees. Yeah. What are they doing? Who are they? Here's a blog post. Here's whatever. You could do videos. You can put them on Instagram, but it's nice to know who's behind the scenes,
right?
Especially for a brand, because it makes it feel more human. Okay, marketers?
Nice. Yeah. That's good, Daddy. I'm nervous now because I feel like you're gonna send me an invoice after that. Like you just gave me some real. Was that in kind? I don't know.
It's totally on the house.
All right, cool. You're gonna have me looking at my mailbox trying to see if I get the invoice to pay my email. But no, that's great. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is enjoying this as much as I am. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Man, you went from dance major to professional dancer to teacher, New York City, working all types of jobs, moving cross country in a road trip, working, doing some headhunting, technical recruiting, entrepreneur, and now you behind the tweets for many executives in tech companies, B2B tech companies at that. And when it comes to humanizing, I think that is definitely, if you can humanize a B2B tech company, then you know exactly what you're talking about.
Totally.
So I love it. Yeah, so I agree with Dani. She says, this is such a wonderful discussion. If you could, Dania, just go ahead and give us maybe how we can keep in touch with you. How could perhaps someone even reach out to you to find out more about your services, or maybe even work with you in the future? And then if you would, leave us with some parting words of wisdom, specifically as you think about, the young Latina who probably feels like she's not traditionally qualified, or that young person that says, I love these creative things as well, but I also love the tech. Like, when you give us some parting words of wisdom after you tell us how to make sure we follow you, can you really speak to that person that could be looking for some guidance along the path that you've traveled?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can follow me at Dania Micala. It's my name, as you can see right here, with just an @ sign in front of it. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. Right now, at this point in my life, I don't have services to sell, but I do consult. If you ever have questions, or if you're interested or looking for mentorship, I'm happy to be that person. Please feel free to reach out and DM me. I do message back. It's a core part of what I believe social should be. Social should be social. So please feel comfortable to come connect. And then I guess if I'm, coming up with like some parting words here, I would say the biggest thing for me, especially in changing careers, was one, feeling like I could. So if no one's ever told you that you can, you absolutely can, and you absolutely can be successful, and it's never too late. But two, to really take everything that you're good at, take all of your skills, everything that you've learned, whether it was from working in a boutique or dancing or performing, and whatever you want to do next or you're interested in doing next, apply them and really find, for me, it was finding the art in technology and what that meant for me. So if you're really passionate about the arts, but you're looking for a segment into tech, I highly recommend thinking with that process and really just finding the art in what you do.
That's great. That's great. Dania, thank you so much. That was pretty awesome. You are a living testimony, a living example of everything you just said. I consider it a true honor and a privilege to have had you on STEMedia Live, for you to have given so much, you schooled us. You schooled us here on what it means to be behind the tweets in the tech industry. And so I just want you to know I appreciate you. Of course, your platform is one that, we follow and admire on Instagram. Shout out to everybody here on YouTube. Make sure you go and check her out across platforms. And I just look forward to continue to see your rise and your growth. And if there's anything STEMedia can do to support you, don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nehemiah. I really appreciate it. This was so awesome. Thank you for everything.
The pleasure was all mine. All right, family. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit subscribe, you like here on YouTube. Go over to Instagram and follow STEMedia as well as Dania. And until next time, you all stay up, and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Peace.